Hi, and welcome to the Off the Charts Football Podcast. I'm Mark Simon, along with SIS VP of Football, Matt Manocherian. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mark, what's happening?
What's happening is that we're going to evaluate the Super Bowl. And if we're going to unpack it, what's the first thing you want to unpack from the game?
Well, it was kind of a ho-hum game. It felt like it was just like a mid-season, any other week, two kind of average teams playing. Not a very well-played game, being all honest, but it was close, which I think is the thing that you most care about.
So I think that I didn't necessarily see that. I saw a game between two very evenly matched teams that may not have been the best teams in football but that were still pretty good, that in a tournament fashion were able to get through to the end.
Yeah, I think you can say that, and it's fair. And I love the parody of football, and I love, kind of the any given Sunday thing. One thing that I won't sleep on is that both of these teams have win-with quarterbacks. It's that term that we keep going back to. We're talking about quarterbacks that you can win a Super Bowl with. There's a reason why we spend so much time trying to figure out that position. Obviously, the Rams have all the superstars built around them. The Bengals, you have Jamar Chase and their wide receiver group and how they put their defense together this year. But at the end of the day, I'm happy the Rams won because I do think that they are the better team. I think they're a better representation of a champion. But I think you got to be looking at, my favorite team, the Chiefs that I keep talking about, or, the Cowboys. Like there are other teams that I feel like got to be looking around. Like, why not us?
And I would say let's focus on the Bengals actually here. Going forward, what's your feeling about where they're headed?
I'm really concerned about the Bengals. I think that when you look at the history of Super Bowl teams, a lot of times the team that loses the Super Bowl goes on to have a hard time. And I think the Bengals might fit the description of one of those teams. Now, what you like about the Bengals is obviously Burrow. We talked about it. You got a win with quarterback in year two. Dan Marino was a win because of quarterback at this point of his career, having just lost the Super Bowl at the end of his second season. So I'm not saying this is it for Burrow and he'll never be back, but I'm saying that it can go a lot of different ways when you found sort of a magical way to get to the Super Bowl. Maybe you overachieved a little bit when you should actually still be a young team with arrow up. So I think they're at a risk of being kind of in that category of a lot of Super Bowl losers. But, I think at the same time, they also have an opportunity, obviously, to continue to build along the trajectory that they were on.
But is he like maxed out? I'm talking Burrow here. Is Burrow maxed out on what he can be? I mean, second year, right?
No, he's not maxed out at all. I think that, in terms of having an elite arm talent, I don't think we're seeing a Dan Marino, a Justin Herbert type of player, but that's not all that goes into quarterbacking. Clearly, we're seeing an elite leader, an elite accuracy kind of guy, somebody who knows how to process defenses very quickly, right? The ability to not just be correct, but to be correct fast. He's shown that. Now, there are the times when you see he can't overcome the weaknesses of his offensive line, which is a little bit more what happened in this game. But there are lots of times when he has. So I think that the upside is, Tom Brady wasn't a win because of quarterback anywhere near this point. He wasn't a win because of quarterback in the seventh year of his career. So there's plenty of story to be written here, and you've got to feel great about having Joe Burrow if you're a Bengals fan. But I'm just trying to pull things back a little bit. Look at the defense. Right. Look at the defense of the Bengals, for example. You have Hubbard and Hendrickson putting in 14 sacks each this year, and I know that Hendrickson's done that 2 years in a row after doubting him the first time. Are they actually double-digit sack talents, both of those guys? Are both of those guys, but when you look forward, when you put the depth chart on the wall, you're looking and you're saying, yeah, we feel good about both of those guys being double-digit sack guys year in and year out? Or did they play basically as good as they could this year? And that'll be a big determinant of, how well they can stay really in the hunt. And that's really where you want to be. You want to be in the hunt. And that
you want to be like the Packers, essentially.
I mean, it's great when you have Aaron Rodgers for years,
right.
or if you could be like the Colts and go from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck.
Is Joe Burrow like someone
franchise quarterback? There's no doubt about it.
There you go.
Don't let me say win with. Don't win with is a great thing. To be a win with a quarterback that you win a Super Bowl with. That's why both of those teams were there. That's what got them to the game. That's not going to be all you need in order to win a Super Bowl. And that's why I think some of the teams that have those win with guys are looking like, man, we left one out there. But that, it's single game tournament, like you said. That's why they play the game.
Rams, and I want to go back. If we're going to analyze one play, one moment, one series, whatever, from a game that's now a few days old, it's the final drive, obviously. So Rams, if we're going to talk one thing from this game, and I know the game's a few days old at this point, I did want to talk about the final drive, your takeaways of the execution, just because I thought it was cool that like you have a team that was built to win the Super Bowl this year, right then, right now. This is their moment. This is their moment to just essentially seize the day, if you want to use a cliche. And they went and they took it. And I just wanted to get your takeaways on their execution at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good thing they brought in every reinforcement that they did, from Stafford to Beckham to Von Miller and everywhere in between. But going back, let's get ourselves back in that moment, right? At this point, they're really struggling offensively. They're already without Robert Woods, like it's been for the whole year. When they lost Odell Beckham Jr., it seemed like they just couldn't do anything offensively. Bless NBC for giving us the terrible camera angles where you can't even really see the coverages until you can go back and watch the All 22 replay. I'll be lamenting that with the other freaks forever. But I don't know, maybe one day we'll get our individual broadcast. Anyway, I digress. We're in this game. We can't get anything going because Beckham's out. And Stafford makes the no-look throw that really changed the drive. It was that no-look throw where, we got this little 8-yard completion here. We got this little dink and dunk that way. It takes us 4 plays to just get our first down of the drive. But when he makes that throw, he's seeing the zone coverage. He's seeing Cooper Kupp coming in on kind of that bang 8 type route where it's sort of in between that post and that slant. It's like it's one of those sort of cuts. And he makes that intermediate throw by staring down the defender, forcing him to stay off of where he wanted him to vacate and making that throw in there. That was an unbelievable throw. And then, of course, that gets him in a scoring position. It becomes the Cooper Kupp show, and it was really fun. Then we all forget he had an easy touchdown throw to Van Jefferson, where Van Jefferson's running wide open in the back of the end zone, and he can, he's got all day to loft it in there, and completely misses the easy one. And then we have that huge sequence in the goal line where it felt like the referees who, had been on vacation until that point in the game started making up for lost time. They had to get their quota before the end of the game, whatever it was. They become really involved and, back and forth about what we make about that. But ultimately, what I will credit the Rams for at the end is they found ways to make it difficult for the Bengals to double team Cooper Kupp. To me, when you talk about the execution in that drive, this was lots of stacks, lots of motions, nasty splits where he's tight to the line of scrimmage so that you're forcing the defense into some automatic checks. And by doing that, I think they really made it a case where they could get the ball to him, even though the defense knew what they wanted them to do. And then, of course, on the final touchdown, and what else? But it was a very wide split by Cooper Kupp. And every football analyst's least favorite play, the goal line fade, he throws it up to him. But this is why they say plays, not players. Cooper Kupp against Eli Apple one-on-one was an absolute mismatch over there. Unless they put a second defender out there, they were going to throw that all day long. And, the execution was there. So it was, that was a fun drive, lots of back and forth. The weird part with the referees in the middle, some great throws, some bad throws, but ultimately Cooper Kupp.
So 2 things here. One, does that go back to what you were talking about last week with the safeties and how the safeties are going to play?
It was a little bit about the safeties and how they were going to play. But at this point in the game, this was the drive to win the game. This was more actually about the Rams kind of looking back and saying, you know what? Damn the safeties, screw figuring out what the defense is trying to do. What we need to do is figure out ways to get Cooper Kupp into one-on-one situations, to get him matched up against the linebacker whenever they're in his zone, to make them wrong no matter what check that they make, right? When he was in the slot in there, it was creating a situation where if they played zone, then he was lined up against 55. He had an easy job getting open there because of his quickness advantage in that part of the field. Then when he was doing some of the stacks on the outside and in the bunches and things like that, they make it really difficult for you to do anything than to cover him kind of one-on-one with whoever he emerges against. And time after time, it was him against Eli Apple. So it was really saying, forget about all the stuff about what they do. This is sometimes what a great coaches do is instead of trying to always adjust to what the opponent is doing, you get back to, you know what? We've got Cooper freaking Kupp. Let's go see if we can win the Super Bowl with him. Let's put him in the best situations. And that's what I thought McVay did well on that last drive.
So with that, I want to take you back to a moment in the game that you didn't mention that I enjoyed just kind of for the fun of the moment, which was the 4th and 1 from their own 30, where I'm sitting there and I'm like, boy, if Sean McVay is dumb enough to lose the Super Bowl by quarterback sneaking here and not putting the ball in the hands of his best guy, then I've somewhat underestimated Sean McVay. And I was relieved to see that it was his decision that he was going to essentially go Michael Jordan here. And you were going to make sure that the best guy in football was going to get the 1 yard to put you in better position to win the game when you absolutely, positively, desperately had to do it. And I was just really glad that they didn't punt. I was really glad that they didn't sneak. If they had handed the ball to Henderson, I might have turned off the TV. It was a nice moment. And just I did want to note on the rarity of that. So 4 times this year, fourth quarter, fourth down, we've seen a wide receiver run the ball. You probably figure Samuel's the other 3. It's not. It was 3 guys. Samuel did it once. I don't know about playoffs and how often it happens in the playoffs, but it struck me as something odd. I just liked it because the run game for them was so bad, and I had no faith in Stafford to run for 1 yard, that he said, we're going to do something unusual here. We're going to take our shot, and we're going to make sure that the best guy in football has an opportunity to gain 1 yard to save our season, and he did it.
I gotta say, I can't agree with you on hating a quarterback sneak there. I love a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 4th and short. This was about a full 1 yard. It wasn't an inches play, so it's not as much of a no-brainer to me there. But 4th and 1, I'm still very partial to the quarterback sneak. The elite athlete Tom Brady has done it so successfully for so long that I'm just of the belief that the numbers stand for themselves in terms of the success of that play. That said,
in the moment, though,
very hard to argue with you about, putting the ball in your best offensive player's hands, really that your only offensive player's hands at that kind of point in the game.
Right.
He had been the entire offense. So I love that. I think it kind of helped get them going. That might've been the moment where McVay said, screw this, I'm just going Cooper Kupp YOLO. Because, if I'm going to lose this game, I'm going to lose it giving it to Cooper Kupp.
Right.
I agree with you on that.
So I look at it this way, like there are times when it's right to make the pass to John Paxson. And there are times where you got to let Michael Jordan do his thing and get you the yard that gets you still be in the game.
Yeah.
To borrow a basketball analogy.
Yeah. Maybe you bring me back to a lot of like early career LeBron debates that I've been involved in.
In the moment, are you going to tell me that there's a higher success probability there that Stafford is going to get the yard or Henderson's going to get the yard than if you pitch to Kupp somehow?
Given all of the context of the moment, I think that's a really difficult question to answer.
Exactly.
And if you played it out, 100,000
that's why it's
times,
fun.
If you could Monte Carlo that situation 100,000 times, I'm not sure that you're right, that the success rate's better that way. That said, this is football. At some point, you have to eventually call the plays and let the players make the plays.
I just like the fun of it. Like the fun of the sitting there and debating it, because if he doesn't make it, it's a debate that we're having today about how stupid was it that they went to Cooper Kupp when it wasn't stupid.
Well, how stupid is that debate that we're just going to play the result and we're going to say, oh my God, great play, give it to your best player.
Well, we're all about the process here, right?
What an idiot. How are you
we're all about the process.
End around on like a jet sweep in this situation? What are you, crazy? When you get any penetration, it's over. All of the traditional football coaches are rolling in their graves, right? Like, I think it's tough. I think ultimately,
it's the most fun thing that came out of the game for me was that moment.
One thing with play calling, since I spent a couple of years coaching high school football before I went over into scouting and then my time with SIS, I will tell you that from the outside, it's really easy to nitpick and question a lot of things. And from the inside, there's almost always information that the coaches are privy to about the specific play call and the specific situation that nobody outside, and maybe you could argue maybe some of the stuff that they are privy to isn't even relevant. Or shouldn't be relevant. And that, that's a lot of what you could study about this. But ultimately, whatever call you make, if it executes and it does well, then everybody thinks you're a genius. And so what are we doing? I don't know. How about the fact that they gave themselves a chance, though? Because that was the 30-yard line with 5 minutes left, right? So go back to the beginning of this drive. The Bengals have the ball first of all. Tyler Boyd drops a 3rd down pass with about 6 minutes, a little over 6 minutes left there to get this drive started to begin with. Otherwise, you're talking about Bengals up by 4 with the ball around midfield. They could have put a kibosh on this whole game being over from that point to begin with. But when the Rams get the ball, they get the 9-yard gain quick. They get the second one, they try a pass incomplete. 3rd and 1, they try the run, your favorite play right up the middle that goes nowhere. And usually 5 minutes left from their own 30, 3 timeouts. My question is,
regular season punt.
Why isn't McVay always doing this? if in this situation, like you said, in this situation, in the Super Bowl, in the biggest moment, if he's going to go there, 4th and 1 on his own 30 with 5 minutes left and 3 timeouts, why isn't he doing that all regular season? Why isn't he doing that all the time? Can he learn from himself, maybe?
There you go. To me, it wasn't even a question. To me, it was blatantly obvious that you were going to go for it there.
Own 30, blatantly obvious. I love how far we've come.
I'm interrupting the show at the midpoint to tell you a few things. One, if you're not following us on Twitter, check us out at football_SIS. We've got a lot of NFL draft preview data out, much more to come. And 2, Matthew Stafford on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 sneaks the last 2 seasons, 8 of 10 in getting the first down. And as I just said to Matt, no matter, I'd put Cooper Kupp's chances at getting the first down at 95%. Fun to debate. Back to the show. So you said to watch the safeties. We talked about it a little bit before. Did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up with regards to watching the safeties from this game?
Yeah. So the safeties, we talked about how this was going to be. I said I expected a cat and mouse game, and it really was. So as it turned out, I thought both defenses kind of ended up with the better hand against both offenses on the day. Obviously, this wasn't an offensive slugfest, but here's what we saw. We saw a lot of disguises from both teams, right? And that was indicative of the cat and mouse game. It was a situation where if you saw the other team leaving 2 safeties back, they're trying to entice you to run the ball. They're trying to bring that guy down at the last second so that they're actually having that extra defender and run support, and vice versa, right? Everybody's trying to fool everybody like this. Neither team was able to pass the ball when the other team was able to keep the 2 safeties deep, right? So both teams' premises were correct, right? We want to keep 2 safeties deep because we think that's how we can hold down their passing game. And generally, they were right. Each team had 17 dropbacks against 2 high, and they had a grand total of 59 completed air yards on those plays. So, 3 completed air yards per play? You're talking about very, very little through the air there. That's why both teams kept running the ball, because they weren't having success against those 2 high looks. So they wanted to try to run the ball to get them out of it. Now, it was when the defenses dropped down the safety into single high that I thought you did start to see a difference, right? On those occasions, Stafford was 14 for 21 on 22 dropbacks. He put up 6 total points earned on single high dropbacks, whereas Burrow had the 175-yard touchdown to T. Higgins, which maybe shouldn't have counted. But besides that, 7 completions on 17 dropbacks, including 4 sacks, 0 total points earned on those plays. So the difference in the game ended up being when the safety came down, the Bengals could only make the Rams pay that one time, whereas the Rams had a little bit more consistency that I think ended up being the difference.
What about the Rams adjustments?
They really struggled. I think they really struggled. They lost Beckham, and we talked about how they morphed their offense to fit Beckham because he's such a different player than Woods. And, it's a weird thing for me to be sitting here in Super Bowl postgame and to be saying, you know what I think the Rams did a great job of? They did a great job of forcing the ball to Cooper Kupp. Usually you don't credit teams for forcing the ball to somebody, but they did that. And they did it well by getting him open, by using all those different tactics that we talked about before with the motions, with the bunches, trying to create the situations where no matter what choice the defense made, you had a manipulation on their check. You were anticipating how they had to check to those certain things to get you the matchup that you wanted. So ultimately, it was a great job of forcing the ball to Cooper Kupp that ended up being the final adjustment that they finally got in at the end when the clock forced them to.
Beckham would have been the MVP if he had stayed healthy throughout the game. I'm convinced of that.
Well, he definitely had that touchdown.
What about why did the Rams keep running the ball?
So it goes back to what I was talking about with the safeties. I think after they lost Odell, they really felt like that was the best thing they had available to them. They couldn't do anything when the teams with 2 safeties deep, with somebody playing over the top on Cooper Kupp, and no other receivers to be named that could really do anything. I think they felt like that was the best thing they had available to them. Eventually, the clock dictated that they had to throw. And so their best player kind of got them there. But on the way there, it was very ugly. Akers had -3 total points earned.
It was awful.
The Rams had -7 EPA on Akers carries. Daryl Henderson was somebody who I said to watch out for as an X factor. Didn't do much on his 4 carries either. In fact, he ended up being more valuable in the pass game. He was the Rams' 3rd most productive receiver by total points earned, which is more a reflection on just how much trouble the Rams had and where they were looking for options to do things because they couldn't get anything going in the passing game, more than it was to say that he was such a great X factor and it was a genius prediction.
How did you feel Stafford played?
I thought he was good enough to win the Super Bowl with. So he makes mistakes, as he does, but he was better than Burrow on this day. And that one no-look throw was an all-timer. I really can't say enough about that no-look throw. It wasn't just like a no-look for the sake of being a no-look. It was within the structure of the defense. He knew that without doing that, he didn't think he had enough room to make that throw in there. He was absolutely right. He stared off the underneath defender, created just enough room to get it out over his outstretched arm. And that was the play that really changed it on the drive. Yes, they had already had the fourth down conversion, but it looked like they were going to slog for every yard they had to get. That was the big play that opened them up as they got around that midfield area that really got them into scoring range. So I thought that was a huge play. But of course, I talked about a few plays later, he misses the easy touchdown that he should have had too. He has the touchdowns. He also has the interceptions to go along with it. Here's how I would quantify it. He had 13% more boom plays than bust plays this season, plays that go from greater than 1 EPA versus less than 1 EPA. And Sunday, he just had 4% more boom than bust. So he wasn't at his best, but he's a firmly win-with quarterback, as is Burrow. And I don't want to take too much away from them because it wasn't the prettiest game.
We can save the Hall of Fame talk for when the full body of work is in for him. Speaking of Hall of Fame, Aaron Donald, he was ridiculous at some points in this game, right?
Yeah, go back to the stat that you talked about with over the last 5 years or whatever it is. He's led defensive tackles in points saved every year. And the difference between number 1 and number 2 is same as the difference between number 2 and 43, 47, whatever it was. 48. It's just at that number, and as crazy as it sounds, is a really great quantification of just how ridiculously good he is. We talk about Jalen Ramsey and how valuable he is. There's no question about who the most valuable player on the defense is. I thought he should have been the MVP on the game. Yes, Cooper Kupp had that drive at the end. That was the difference-making drive and 2 touchdowns. Hard to argue with him. But really, when you look at this team and what drove them there and what got them there, it's Aaron Donald, the MVP. We also say the greatest ability is availability. Well, I'm not sure if that's the case with Aaron Donald, but he's certainly always available. This guy does not miss time. And when you look and you saw, the last drive of the game, you heard right away, Al Michaels noticed him running out off the sideline, ready to get that stop when the Bengals were going to do their thing at the end there. He seemed to know that was that moment. And I'll tell you, going back to when I scouted Aaron Donald, when he was coming out of Pitt, that's how he was every day in practice there. That's the type of worker that Aaron Donald is. So when you look at all the Instagram pictures and stuff like that, that's the result. But the process with this guy, it's been consistent since once I saw there. Defensive linemen are crazy people. So I'm not vouching for anybody from a character standpoint beyond what I see at practice. But when it came, whether he was at Pitt, and it's obvious that as he was running onto that field, that final drive of the game, it was that same tireless worker who was always leading by example, more so than everything else, and showing everybody else, hey, I'm going to get us there. Are you with me, or are you going to stay behind?
He's a monster. He was fantastic. And then just for kicks here, Chase and I guess Higgins versus Ramsey.
Yeah, the most impactful play that Jalen Ramsey was involved in was the T. Higgins touchdown. I don't think that's really on him in that sense. People got a little bit, I think, carried away with where the matchups are and how everything went. There were times where these receivers worked Ramsey a little bit. I think that's fair to say. But I think also when you look at on the totality of the game, this is a very good Bengals receiving group. There were times when Burrow did have time to throw, and they, for the most part, held this very strong passing attack down. So I don't go too hard one way or another. Interesting that Higgins was the more impactful receiver on this day compared to Chase. As much publicity as Chase gets, I think a lot of people have a tendency to sleep on T. Higgins and just how good he's been for them throughout the whole year, not just in this game. It was kind of a fun matchup to watch. Again, I wish you could watch it more in real time instead of having to go back to the All-22 in order to kind of see how things developed.
Back to the Bengals for a second. Where did it go wrong for them in the game?
Pass protection is the easy answer. That was the matchup that we were focused on to begin with. We thought, can they get the ball out quickly to offset that? Can they run the ball to offset that?
Looked good for a little while.
Joe Mixon had 72 yards on 15 carries. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't impactful either. These weren't big positive EPA runs. A lot of times it was a first down, 4-yard carry that was kind of ho-hum, not really changing things for anybody. Ultimately, I think that Aaron Donald was what did them in on that side of the ball. But when it comes down to it, this is a team that overachieved, and to say they failed, I think is hard here. I think that they did much more than on paper you would say that they should have done. I talked about it at the top a little bit, but for this team to be as close as they were to winning the Super Bowl is really something. This was a team, and I hate to make it sound like I'm taking something away from them or really doubting them going forward, because trust me, I'd be happy to have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to build around. But I thought they did a great job getting to where they were, and just ran out of gas. The 3 points away from winning the Super Bowl is not so bad.
Bengals picked 31st in the draft. Some of their needs seem kind of obvious. Is the offensive line is basically like a Chiefs kind of operation? They're going to remake the offensive line in the offseason?
You trying to trick me? Like we're like half hour into the podcast or whatever, and you're trying to trick me into becoming a need-based drafter?
We're doing one draft take here.
No, but I'm not need-based drafting at all. I'm looking at the talent that's on the board, and I'm formulating my team for that. It was great for the Chiefs that they ended up being able to.
Are you need-based free agenting?
Yeah, you have to be a little bit more need-based as you look at free agents, right? You don't want to fill in roster spots at places where you already have your cap space committed into the future and different things like that. Ideally, you're always getting really good players in the draft, though, and letting them grow into roles where they could be leaders on your team, and then you're supplementing in free agency from there and building around that. Now, listen, the Rams don't care about who who their first round pick is. They haven't had a first round pick in 7 years or whatever it is. That is how they got Aaron Donald, way back in the day. But they've also proven that there are different ways that you can build things. Still, the way that I'm looking at it, though, is that I think the Bengals really should sort of stay the course in terms of the way that they've been building their team. They've had some success building through the draft. I think that, yes, that is clearly their need. And if the need aligns with the best players that are available when their picks come up, on any of their picks, not just the first round pick, then I think that in some sense, yes, they should address the offensive line. I think that would be helpful. I also just want to go back to the thing that I said before about sometimes the great coaches going back to what they do really well instead of trying to make up for where there are perceived areas of lacking. Just like last year, they added Jamar Chase. The rich got richer at the receiver position instead of addressing the offensive line. And here they were in the Super Bowl. So just because it's easy to say, yes, they have a need here, let's just not get carried away with that need-based line of thinking, because sometimes if you can sort of exacerbate an advantage, that's just as good as filling a need.
Speaking of the draft, I suppose we should plug what we're continuing to work on the next few months. What are we continuing to work on, Matt?
Yes, the SIS NFL draft website. It is going to be awesome. Everybody knows we did the big rebrand last year where we went from our antiquated old website to the new and improved SIS website. And along with that, we're totally revamping all of our technological capabilities. So the first build out on our new website, where you're going to be able to consume all of our data through all of our different subscription and free different packages. This will be a free one. This will be what was the SIS Football Rookie Handbook, but now it will be in website form. So no more flipping around from page to page, carrying around a 700-page book with you, flipping through your Amazon Kindle. It'll all be right there for you for free on the web. You can click on player pages to see the links, see the full scouting reports alongside all of the SIS deep data that we've become known for. And then right back over to check out the leaderboards and how they fit in against comparable players at their position, and on and on. We're super pumped about it. I couldn't be more ecstatic about how it's coming along. Look for it to be coming out sometime around the end of March when we'll fully release it. The SIS NFL Draft website, replacing the Football Rookie Handbook. And it's going to be, I think, the best thing that we've cooked up for free ever at SIS.
And one other cool thing that is coming everybody's way, for people that are unfamiliar, we do basketball too. And the SIS Hoops team has a podcast of its own that's coming out. It will be out next week, Playing in Space, hosted by Henry Ward. Driven by insights derived from our NBA data, this show will cover league trends, basketball philosophy, and more as we work to better understand the game. Check that out next week, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Mark, did you see what they put out on the SIS Hoops Twitter?
Yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, it'll be our stat of the week this week as well. They're doing some cool stuff, very similar to what we do for football, only just taking it and extrapolating it for hoops. One thing that they're looking at this year, NBA-wise, passing. You don't just, it's process-based, not result-based, which I'm sure you love. It's the idea of, did you make a pass that created an open shot? Rather than did you make a pass that created a shot that happened to go in, which you had no control over? And I think that's cool. Not surprisingly, Luka's the best guy in the game. Those are their
creating
findings
opportunities for teammates. Absolutely. Yeah, those guys are uncovering what really matters for basketball. It's completely awesome what they're doing with advantage creation, expected points influence. I get so excited when I see all that stuff. So a huge shout out to Jake Lose and company and Henry Ward's podcast. I cannot wait to listen to it. Everybody should definitely. What's the name of it again?
Name of it's Playing in Space.
Looking forward to it.
And this wraps up this week's episode. For Matt Manocherian, I'm Mark Simon. Thank you for listening to the Off the Charts Football Podcast.